GT4 European Series for 2018. We're straight into qualifying number 1. We have 2 sessions, one for race 1 and the second one for race 2. 20 minutes apiece. 44 cars packing the pit lane. The crew's only just bringing the last of them and all the tyre trolleys into the top of the pit lane now. And it really just shows the growth of GT4. It's been an absolutely phenomenal rise over the past few years. New manufacturers coming on board all the time. In fact, very close to the front of the pit lane, you can see the blue noses, the 2 Chevrolet Camaros joining the mix again this year. So that's good to have them coming on board to see if they can challenge the Audi R8 LMSs that are proving so strong. The Ginetta G55's in among the mix. And in fact, in practice yesterday, we had 5 manufacturers in the top 6 positions. At the top of the charts was Nicola Smoller Madsen in one of the Phoenix Racing Audis, 1 minute 38.7 seconds. Let's see what can be done to that. Track conditions absolutely fine this morning. McLaren's in the mix there, Porsche 911 on the left of the screen from Auto Orlando Sport. Such good supporters of the championship. You can see the 2 Chevrolet Camaros just on the right-hand side of that batch of cars. Crowds coming in, a holiday weekend here in Belgium. Flags flying, a little light breeze, but clear skies, wispy clouds over in the distance, but really perfect conditions on the track. But the track conditions were quite slow to rise this morning. And certainly the drivers out in the Blancpain Sprint Series were, thank you very much, just been handed my spotter's guide. The start of the season is now complete. We're ready to go racing. Thank you very much to Marcel Tencat, who's sprinted across from the commentary to the commentary booth. There's Paolo Meloni talking, who's been a long-time racer for Auto Orlando Sport. He's tucked down there in the pit lane, ready to go out and play. In fact, he's moved across to W&D Racing, I beg your pardon. He's driving a BMW M4 this year, all change, sharing with Massimiliano Trisoli. So for V8 Racing and the Chevrolet Camaros, they want to get out in there. Don't worry about that vehicle in the background. That's not going out to play. Just trying to keep out of the way. It's just delivered some tyres to the pits. Hopefully that will be out of the pit lane, and so it goes as the 44 cars go out onto the circuit. BMW M4s looking very strong as they become developed this year. They'll be up towards the front end. The top one of them was not even in the top 10 yesterday, but it's early in the season. And there's the McLaren shared by Lisette Brahms and Sven van Leer. It's Lisette on board. She had a year away, back to full health, and great to have her on board. Such a character. Very strong Dutch element in the GT4 European Series. Her son Max at the helm of the championship, helping to drum up the support. But just take a look at the variety of cars out around the circuit. As I said, 44 come out to play. Plenty still sitting down in the pit lane. And if for the Blancpain sprint drivers trying to find a space clear on the track to set a good qualifying time, it's double the trouble. Talking of trouble, GT4 Euro Series, we've just been through those 2 cars just going through the Villeneuve chicane. That is where 2 drivers removed the cone, which is on the inside, the right-hand entry to the corner, bringing out the red flag. It's there for a purpose. Drivers not to exceed the lines there, and certain drivers may have the best times removed. We've got to wait and see on that. That's the first of the chicanes. That's before you go over the rise. Drivers very much at the moment trying to get heat into their tyres. That was the Thierry Boots chicane. Up over the rise, it's not flat at Zolder. It might appear to be in the local countryside, but as you can see, one of the KTM crossbows just turning into the Villeneuve chicane and staying way away from that cone, so good to see that. That's probably Gottfried Pils in number 24. Entered by Reiter Engineering. But that's the Internet X entry. So KTM's been such strong supporters, real backbone of the GT4 European Series. And one of the crews that's always in there with its Aston Martin is Street Art Racing. It's wonderful from above. There's traffic. This isn't a race, this is qualifying. It's about not just setting a quick time, it's about making sure you've got clear space out on the circuit. And if that's not enough, other cars joining from pit exits, and more cars, 44 coming out to play, and it's going to be, everyone's going to have an excuse. Another driver got in my way. Tough when you're putting 44 cars on the circuit. That's what's going to be there. It's not a novelty, it's how it is. Yeah, nice new livery developing that street art car. Darras and Bachmann, and it should be, according to my list, Darras going out first in that. Sorry, Bachmann, the Swiss racer. Darras should go out in Q2. that Aston Martin, wonderful livery, number 7. So waiting for the first flying laps to really be put on the board. In fact, on my timing screen, the transponder suggests it's Darris in the car, not Bachmann. So I'm sure we'll have a few people who swap driver 1 and driver 2. Getzi and Giovanelli, long-time racers for Auto Orlando Sport, always a Porsche team, at the back of that little trio of cars. There it is, number 76. Getzi and Giovanelli. In fact, they were the AM champions in the Euro GT4 Northern Cup last year. So the first flying laps, and it's Max Cobalt who's gone to the top, the number 1 MDM Motorsport BMW, 1 minute 41.4 seconds best time. Porsche Caymans, so many of those in this series. Are they still the car to have? Well, we'll find out through the course of the year. In fact, yesterday in practice, I think one was up towards the top end. 4th fastest, Hendrik Still. For Allied Racing, they've very much been a top team in terms of running the Porsche Caymans over the years. And car number 13, having a little look on my screen, Schrader Motorsport, Mark Basseng. Well, such experience. He looks like he could be about to go to the top of the time charts, and he does that just as I speak. Nicky Leutenfehler, one of a few drivers who's just racing on his own this weekend. Emmanuel Winkel would race in Academy Motorsports, Aston Martin on his own, and Louis-Philippe Sunen, one of the 3 Seleslar Racing Team Mercedes. Wonderful livery for them in silver. Oh, there you go. You don't want to clout a chicane like that. That's the Piano Rescue Orange Vision that would be number 111. BMW M4s went on very strongly, particularly in the French Championship last year. BMW M4 looks very, very well balanced indeed. Change to the top, it was Mark Basseng, number 3, moved to the front. Cedric Freiberg House in his Audi R8, but it's number 36, top of the charts at the moment. CMR, that's Stefan Lemur. At the top of the charts in a Ginetta G55, 2, even 3 abreast as one of the KTM crossbows tries to keep out of the way. That would not be helping Gabriele Piana in that number 111 BMW. There's lots of proof that you got caught in traffic, but I'm afraid it is part of the show. So are we going to have 111? He's down in 14th place. How good is this lap? He sets some very good middle seconds. He goes top. He still manages to go top by 0.05 of a second. He's moved ahead of car number 36, which in fact is not in the hands of Tribadini, it's his teammate Pierre-Alexandre Jean. Now, the Camaro looks fantastic. It looks even better when it's slicing its way past cars, past one of the McLarens. This is the number 9 entry from V8 Racing, Luke Brahms and Duncan Heisman. And at the moment, looking to set time, it was Duncan Heisman who's just moved his way. Well, he's just waiting to set a proper flying lap. He's really mired in the traffic, but he's outside the top 20, down in 25th position of the 44 runners. Jelle Bielan, great to have Jelle back on board, really, really strong in 2015, 2016 in this championship, then sort of went away for a while. In fact, he was the European champion in 2015, sharing with Marcel Nuren. He's back in also with V8 Racing, also in a Chevrolet. So good to have Jelle back on board. Very, very enthusiastic racer. Wonderful rumble from the 2 Chevrolet Camaros. Double the fun when you get them running together. They're stuck behind one of the Audis there. Duncan Heisman being slightly held up, as is his teammate there, but we have still 12 and a bit, nearly 13 minutes. This 20-minute session is going to go in the blink of an eye. Car number 26 at the top of the pile. That's David Logier for CMR, so they're going very well with their Ginetta. Jelle Bielan, number 18, he is 17th. He's about 8 places, 9 places above his teammate. Let's see how much he improves by. Jelle Bielan actually loses a tiny bit of ground there, number 18. He improved his time, he didn't improve his time. Everyone else around him is doing so. Well, that's an easy Audi spot. Number 6, great livery there, Jörg Wiebahn and Jean-Louis Jasper. We've got an onboard with that. In fact, we're riding with it right now. Now, let's see the rise and fall of the ZOLDER circuit. Again, very tight in places. A little bit tail happy, not wanting it there. The Aston Martin going a little bit wider, but more of a straight line. But you can see that Jörg Wiebahn, so much experience at GT4 racing. really is pushing on. Lights are flashing, trying to get people to move out of his way. He was European champion in the AM class back in 2013 and overall champion in 2016. But why don't we ride for a lap and just see how bad the traffic is, but the conditions on the circuit absolutely perfect. Increasing track temperature through the day, the air temperature rising as well. That's turn one. There's an enormous gravel trap. Almost a beguiling entry. It makes you think the corner is far wider and more open when you go down there, particularly at the start of the race. And the corner seems to come back at you. It's more than 90 degrees, about 110 degrees turn one. Then the long 2 and 3 combination, 3 rather more open than 2. Then turn 4. Now we're going to start running behind the paddock. Oh, big twitch there from Jorg Vebaan. Well, he's got to meet the gravel. Don't know, just clearly didn't have as much heat in his tyres as he wanted. He's lost ground to those ahead, and this lap fairly much scuppered for the number 6 Audi. He's 7th fastest at the moment, but this lap isn't going to be one that goes into his Hall of Fame. Bouncing over the newly renamed Thierry Boutsen chicane, over the crest of the hill, down he drops, arcing his way to the left, and then he's going to work down to the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. And here's a replay of going out wide and turn 4. No wheels touching the curbing on the outside of the circuit. They've all gone beyond into the gravel. Everyone else behind him behaving, but we saw at the end of the previous lap just how hard Jorg Vebaan was pushing. Car 22, one of a handful of KTM crossbows in the race. That's Laura Kreiheimer and Rainer Koffler. McLaren's becoming an increasingly popular part of the mix. That's 88. That's Team GT. 2 McLaren's entered, the 570Ss entered by the team. One for Nico Rindisbacher and Paul Rees, the other for Bernard Laber and Felix von der Laden, German racer. Everywhere you look, just look at this growth of GT4 racing. A few years ago, we might have had 25 cars. It crept up past 30. Now it's charged past 40, and it's hard to know. Really, they're going to have to start turning cars away. Such has been the growth, and with championships, various championships all around Europe, but this is the predominant one. This is the European series. This is the one that they all want to win. And just look at the mix of cars. The Ginetta in the middle, the McLaren in front, keeping out of the way. The Ginetta going increasingly well. One of them was up 3rd fastest yesterday, Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton for Racing 1. Down for that one, it's car number 55. Blue and white. Top of the charts is now number 5, Phoenix Racing Audi, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. He was fastest yesterday. 1 minute 38.0 seconds, 4/10 of a second fastest. Ginetta in the hands of Pierre-Alexandre Jean. New car in 3rd place, number 10. Keep it short, Ricardo van der Ende. Well, what hasn't he won in GT4 racing? So here's right up at the front end. Then David Lozier, 4th fastest. The 87 McLaren there. Paul Rees, Nico Rindisbacher. That's the other car from Team GT. Looking for his position on the charts. Paul Rees down in 19th place. Again, you see how hard the drivers have to work to try and find the track position they need, and we have cars slowing. Do we have a red flag? Just full course yellow. Full course yellow. Suddenly heard the engine note change past the commentary box. Cone slid out onto the circuit. It's good practice for these drivers as well to understand. Is it the same old corner? No, different corner, but same process. Fitness work for the marshals out the run. So just trying to dictate. I think that was the Thierry Boutsen chicane. Full course yellow. Good chance to see the cars in closer. Just to point out, number 5 Audi, fastest of all at the moment, the hands of Nikolai Moller-Madsen. He's sharing that with Milan Doncha, Indy Doncha's brother, so very strong driver lineup. That number 2 Mercedes from Leipzig Motorsport. New pairing, Ivan Pereras and Marcus Pavarud. So good practice for these drivers to slow to the appropriate speed out around the circuit. Full course yellow. And in a field as big as this with the 44 cars, a lot of drivers stepping up to this new level of racing as GT4 continues to spread its wings. But notice the clock at the top of the screen is still ticking down. 7 minutes remaining. It's a 20-minute session for those who are desperately trying to find an opening in the traffic. This is time that's flying away from them. For those at the top at the moment, including the driver who was fastest in practice yesterday, this is a good time indeed. We're green again. The full course yellow has been withdrawn. Suddenly the engine note rises, and who has got a clear stretch of track in front of them? That Cellazlar Mercedes certainly does. Can't tell if that's 31 or 32. They both got green rear wings. The sister car rather helpfully has a red rear wing. It's number 31. That's the one in the team that's not running in the AM class. It's Gregory Eichmans and Sam de Jong, two Belgian racers on home ground. They'll be looking for a great run here. The driver's largely listed as driver 2 in this session, 31. Yeah, one wonderful clear stretch of track ahead of it. And Gregory, up to this point, not in the top 20. This is his chance to move his way up the charts. In fact, he's down in 35th position, 3.5 seconds on the pace. And the drivers appear to be slowing all over again, no? Going fast over the start-finish line. Some just trying to get some heat in their tyres. Well, I think that there's a driver who's just getting a heat and now winding it up. 31 coming over the start-finish line any moment now, out of that final corner. We've got the Street Art Racing Aston Martin at a halt at the side of the circuit, so that's not ideal. Greg Eichmann's getting very, very close to the pit wall there. Trying to take the widest line down into turn 1. Someone ahead of him had taken a far line. Oh no, they were coming out of the pits. I thought they'd just come out of the gravel trap, one of the BMWs. 5 and a bit minutes remaining. It's still the number 5 Audi from Phoenix Racing, setting the ball rolling the start of the 2018 GT4 European Series. Yeah, at Zolder. Everyone else trying to wind up the pace, but with that stoppage, and now with the wave getters behind the pits, before they get to the Thierry Boots chicane, they've come out of turn 4 in the background. That's where we saw Jörg Wiebahn rattling his way through the gravel trap. And is there a pit? There is a pit. There is an opening in that wall behind the paddock. I don't know how close. Couldn't see exactly how far along with the foreshortening effect of the TV cameras, how far they were from a gap. But there we can see the order on the screen. Nikolai Moller-Madsen from the CMR number 36 CMR entry. And this is Nikolai Moller-Madsen on P1 at the moment by just under 0.4 of a second. White with the black and green flashes. A couple of the Ginettas sitting in the pit lane, but with the clock counting down to pretty close to 4 minutes, maybe they won't have a chance to go back out. But one of the CMR cars, number 36 on the right hand of your screen, is provisionally second at the moment, but Ricardo van der Ende not far behind in the number 36 BMW, the 36 entry, sorry, number 10 entry, and he will be absolutely out on a charge. So we've got the variety Audi from Ginetta, from number 10, of course, in the McLaren this year, sharing with Finley Hutchison. Silver class runners. Oh, hello. Stuart Middleton in his Ginetta has set the fastest first sector of anyone. He's down in 7th place. It's the number 55 entry from HHC Motorsport. White with sort of pale blue banding around the car, but can he have clear track clear enough to keep on that improvement? At the moment he's a whisker under a second down on Nikolai Moller-Madsen's pace. Time set by Nikolai Moller-Madsen in his Phoenix Racing Audi. But there could be improvement. Just waiting for Middleton in the 55 Ginetta to get to the second timing point, the second of 3 around the circuit. His last lap was an improvement, moved him up to 7th place. This lap looks better. Oh, no, he's not had such a good middle sector. In fact, he's a second off the pace in the middle sector. So one would suggest traffic got in the way of the 55 Audi. But what can he do down towards the end of the lap? Is that could be Middleton coming down into the final chicane in the background in his Ginetta. White and blue, it looked to be the right sort of car. There's Middleton. So, went well yesterday, and his teammate were 3rd fastest. No improvement, but he was, well, in fact, there was an improvement, but his overall time only went forward by 1/10 of a second. That middle sector cost him dear. Take that out, and his time would have been good enough with his 2 other sectors to put him on pole position. So pace is in that HHC Motorsport car. No stranger to GT4, was a champion in the British Championship last year in the GT4 class, along with his teammate Will Tregurtha. So waved yellow flag still for that Aston Martin, which looks as though it's nearly been pushed, was pushed off the circuit, nearly through an access into the back of the paddock, but still time for improvement for the HHC Motorsport Ginetta, being driven right out to the edge on both sides of the circuit, up over the crest, over the rise, down the drop towards the Villeneuve chicane. Various drivers having their times deleted for exceeding track limits at turn 9. Turn 9 is the Villeneuve chicane. So no improvement in the first sector, little traffic to be negotiated, but it has been negotiated by Stuart Middleton. He's now halfway around the lap. What's his middle sector going to do? That's his best middle sector. So 6/10 better than his best. All this could put him up towards the front row. But there's movement. Who's improved ahead of him? Number 111, Gabriele Piana. One of the RN Vision BMW M4s. He is up into 5th place, equal in time with Reinhard Koffler, down to the thousandths of a second. But let's see, is there going to be a move from a driver behind them on the timesheets going ahead? Stuart Middleton, yes he does. He goes up into 3rd place, 4/10ths of a second down on pole. Another 8,000ths of a second, if he can find it, will move him into 2nd place. At the moment, that's held by the 36 entry. That's another one of the Ginettas, and that's from CMR Racing, and that's Pierre-Alexandre Jean in 2nd place. Nikolai Moller-Madsen still in the pits, as is Pierre-Alexandre Jean. Well, of course, too late to go out, just over half a minute remaining. Where's the challenge coming from? Can Middleton do another lap and go on and improve further? He's only got to find an absolute blink of an eye, and he'll be on to 2nd position ahead of Pierre-Alexandre Jean. 39 making its moves out around the circuit, and that's one of the BMWs, the many BMWs. That's Gwenaël Delermier, 3-wide technology. Of course, they're running a BMW M6 in the Blancpain Sprint Series, so busy, busy, busy for Baz Leinders and his crew. For a lot of these cars, this is their last chance to move up the charts. A good first sector, not his best from Stuart Middleton. He's only looking for a 10th of a second, even a 100th of a second would move him up the charts. We are dealing with thousands. There is the checkered flag. That's the end of qualifying session number 1. We'll have a 10-minute break while these cars come in and the rest get ready to go out. They'll hand over to their teammates. Drivers 2 on the listings are out in this session, and drivers 1 will be going out in session number 2. Always at this point, you have to look for what is green on your timing screen. Is anybody improving around their final lap? No, Middleton will not be having an improvement. He's backed off a little bit, or maybe got blocked at the 2/3 point around the lap. In fact, he's just crossed the finish line, and he was down by 3/10ths of a second, so he is 3rd fastest. 2nd place is Pierre-Alexandre Jean, number 71, going around to complete his session. That's Paolo Meloni, WTD Racing Team BMW. 44 cars went out to play, but really I could see no late improvements, certainly not among the top half of the grid. So very much under control for Nikolai Moller-Madsen, sharing with Milan Donci. Phoenix Racing Audi, fastest yesterday by 2/10ths of a second, fastest today by almost double that, 0.399 of a second. That number 5 Audi had it all very much under control. And the dark livery, that's the Bullet Racing number 33 Mercedes, shared by Andy Merrick and Stephen Patrick. Raced a McLaren last year, and there is one of the great looking Chevrolet Camaro GT4s, entered by V8 Racing. That's the number 9 entry. How good's their pace? Even in the hands of Duncan Houseman, they haven't got into the top 20. 21st for Duncan. And the sister car not that far further ahead, because number 18, sorry, it's further behind, is further down the time chart, still developing their craft. So cars could almost string nose to tail the whole way around the circuit. 44 cars went out to play. We had that full course yellow in the middle of the session. First chance to see some of the cars. Walero, that's the number 60 entered Aston Martin. Matt Nicol-Jones went out, and we'll be handing over to the person who runs the Walero clothing company, under clothes for racers. That's Fiona James. She will be taking that Academy Motorsport Aston Martin over, running in the Pro-Am class, of course. You can see on the windscreen as much notification as you require. Temperatures continue to rise. Those two CMR Ginettas parked side by side. They seem to be fairly much under control, and the number 36 entry was 2nd quickest in that session in the hands of Pierre-Alexandre Jean, handing over to Stefan Tribudini. Marshals go out to just make sure any gravel on the track is cleared. But there we have Nikolai Moller-Madsen top in the Phoenix Racing Audi. 1:38.0447, 4/10 of a second ahead of Pierre-Alexandre Jean, who was in 36 Ginetta. Then another not charging Ginetta. Stuart Middleton couldn't quite depose him, but we're talking thousandths of a second. Ricardo van der Ende, 4th in his McLaren. Reinhard Koffler, 5th, and then Gabriele Piana, who was going great guns in the 111 BMW, in 6th place for the RN Vision STS crew. David Logier also going well in the 3rd of the Ginettas, in the top 10, and in 7th place. Bates Kavissa and Nico Mansell showing the 110 BMW, and Nico Mansell had a good run there. So well within the top 10 runners. As you can see, bright blue skies behind the timing screens as we see all the conditions. But look, you have to get deep into you have to go off the bottom of the second page, so past 24th position before you get to a car that's 2 seconds off the ultimate pace, and take away the pace of Nikolai Moller-Madsen. That puts them within 1.5 seconds. This is close, just how it absolutely should be. But here at Zolder, it really is all about finding a clear lap and getting some heat into your tyres, and just not you probably have to compromise a fair bit, I think one would say, because you're unlikely to find all the space you need. You're not going to find all the grip you need, but it's about getting it right. Qualifying for the GT4 European Series is super quick fire, and really what we've seen is Nikolai Moller-Madsen was setting the pace yesterday, and that was no flash in the pan, because he's done it again today. 0.2 quicker than anyone yesterday, 0.4, 0.399 of a second. Very good job indeed for the number 5 crew. And Milen Donci will be taking the car over. And again, it is so super quick fire. All of the crews here. There's the 26 car that ended up well in the top 10, down in 7th place. So for the Classic and Modern Racing, or CMR team as it's been abbreviated, it's looking very handy indeed. And they also will be have been competing in the French Championship, which kicked off not so long ago, a few weeks ago, and in fact the 3Y Technology BMWs were also out to play in that championship too, and maybe some more will cross over during the course of the season and dip their toe in that pond. But this is the big pond, this is the European Series, and it's a very pit lane, very colourful pit lane, it must be said. Mercedes looking good, sounding absolutely fantastic as they rumble past the pit building. I must say the livery on that number 4 Audi from Phoenix Racing actually almost makes it look like a different make of car. It's much easier to see it's an Audi when you see the bright day-glow Phoenix Racing number 6 Audi of Jörg Wiebahn and Jean-Louis Jasper. But I think the Martini livery on the number 4 car, the swooshes down the side, George Bird Steiner and Helmut Rodig, to make you look twice to check that it's an Audi. These ones are far more traditional liveries. And again, pit lane at Zolder, a very busy and happy place this morning. The winter is over for all these drivers now. The season is kicking in, and it looks so all is set for a good weekend weather-wise here at Zolder. Background of the shot, there's a KTM being towed in. Can't see any damage to the car. That's coming down the pit lane. Yay! But it was a really good session there, very clean. Hardly any cars, apart from Jörg Wiebahn, almost the most experienced GT4 driver, running wide. But 44 cars in the pit lane, and qualifying 1 is over. So let's go down to the pit lane and hear from the driver who was fastest of all, Nikolai Moller-Madsen.
Nikolai, fastest in the first session. That's looking pretty good for you now.
Yeah, it's a good start. Now Milan have to keep it up, and then the race afternoon is the most important one. So,
what is it like on track with all this traffic?
There's a lot of traffic. Yeah, I'm lucky that I was driving in the pro category. So, I mean, the drivers are a bit more experienced, but still we had 3 or 4 full cars yellow in a qualifying. It's not the best thing. And then 44, 47 cars. Yeah, that's what you have to do as a driver, get the gap and then put your lap together.
So lots of overtaking then?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to hear from Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Lots of GT racing experience, lots of GT4 experience, and but he's got to change this year. He's moved across from the Pro Sport Performance Porsche crew to Phoenix Racing Audi, and obviously for vast majority of the drivers working their way to the front end, their eyes are stepping up to the Blancpain Series itself, the GT Series, moving up to GT3, but right now very competitive in GT4. But that margin of 0.4 of a second, very impressive indeed, not just because of the size of the margin, but the fact he did it by working space in the traffic to do so. Now, an entry from Turkey. Great to have the Borissan Automotive Motorsport crew in their wonderful turquoise BMW M4. Done a bit of testing, came across, and looking really fantastic. And certainly the M4 seems to be a very good benchmark car to have, as is the Audi R8. And again, some fantastic race liveries down there. That's number 77. That's therefore from the Racing One crew. Jabba Moore and Patrick Zamperini. The level of presentation of these cars rises year after year as well, which is a feather in everybody's cap. The sister car is Hamza Owega and Marcus Lungstrass. Should be number 16. Yes, you can see 16 up on the windscreen, and then the big snouts of these, just like the Celislaw Racing Team Mercedes. The one with the red flashes should be number 30, which is Nicholas van Dierendonk and Johan van Arum. They're two drivers who are actually busy this weekend. They're also competing in one of the Belcar the endurance race here at Zolder. Packed agenda. So for them, this early point in the season, it's a chance to get as much track time as possible. In fact, what little shade we have in the pit lane is cast by the bridge that comes across what I call my side of the circuit of the grandstand, looking back across at the pit garages. It's a bridge. You can almost sense the buzz down in the pit lane. The drivers who've got out who were pleased that they managed to set a quick lap, and those who got out who were frustrated, but they're trying to encourage their teammates on to greater things. First GT4 race this afternoon, starting at 16:45. This looks like the 55 Ginetta that went so well in the hands of Stuart Middleton, now handing over to Will Tregurtha. And one of the absolute keys in these races is to have a strongest combined lineup you can get. And there's British GT4 champions. That's a very, very strong pairing indeed. Car number 71 as the cars go out on circuit. One of the many, many BMWs. That was the one for W&D Racing Team. Paolo Meloni will hand that over to Massimiliano Trisoldi. 20 minutes of qualifying, the clock already ticking down, 20 seconds gone as the first few cars go out. The pit exit feeds back into the circuit just on the inside of turn 2. Having gone around the back of that enormous gravel trap that does find a few cars sitting in it at the start of certain races at turn 1. Sudden flurry of Porsche Caymans and Ginetta, a couple of Ginettas following out, in fact both of the CMR Ginettas. Just working their way out onto the circuit. Mercedes, McLarens, Audis sitting in the pit lane. The Turkish turquoise liveried BMW M4 also waiting to go out. It's easier to find space on a circuit when you've got 22 cars, but we have 44 coming out to play. So I think you just have to accept there will be traffic somewhere around the lap, barring a miracle. Now looking at the Villeneuve chicane and the cone on the inside that caused so much trouble for the Blancpain runners by drivers removing it and having their times removed from them for taking advantage of shortening the route around the lap. And already we have a message on the screen. Car number 1, which was Max Cobalt, handing over to Simon Knapp. Must respect track limits at turn 6, so didn't take long. That's your out lap. McLaren in the background of the shot is the one entered for Lisette Brahms and Sven van Leer. He also is competing in one of the sport races, Belcar endurance race, but they're running in the AM class. McLaren 570S, number 11. And it's Lisette. Sven went out in the first session. It's Lisette at the wheel at the moment, chasing the Camaro down the start-finish straight. And all the drivers at the moment trying to get heat into their tyres around the circuit. With the Blancpain runners running in cooler conditions early this morning, we could see a lot of them thought they'd got heat in their tyres. They'd start their first flying, then they'd get down to the first corner. There's a bit of a bobble, and they'd go, right, haven't quite got the grip I want. Keep it on the track. In the back, that is the exit of turn 1. A few drivers, including that Porsche Cayman, running a little bit wide there, still seeking the grip they hope will come their way. So Alessio Giovanelli is setting some good pace early in the sessions. They build up towards their first flying lap in his Porsche 911 from Autolando Sport. and also Will Tregurtha. He's the driver showing that 55 Ginetta with Stuart Middleton, who was going very well at the end of the session. Up over the rise, out of the Boutsen chicane, over the rise, down towards the Villeneuve chicane. Car 43 looking great in the spring sunshine. Hendrick still showing that with Jan Kasperlik. At the moment it's Kasperlik at the wheel. Hendrick had his go earlier on. He's up at the front end, deep in the top handful of cars, waiting for the first flying laps to be achieved. Almost sense the pace being picked up these drivers as they gain in confidence. The Aston Martin keeping out of the way very politely. 2-3 abreast. How's that for a mix of cars? You've got the Aston Martin, you've got the Porsche Cayman, in front of that the BMW M4, and then the Chevrolet Camaro just pulling to the side of the circuit. Keeping out of the way, but not wanting to lose too much tyre heat, trying to keep on the driver's toes. 4 minutes have passed. Jan Kasperlik now really starting to wind it up in that 43 Porsche Cayman from Allied Racing. And if there's anything to be known about running a Porsche Cayman in GT4, just ask Allied Racing. So Giovanelli goes top. First flying lap to put him at the top of the charts from Hutchinson. So that's the 76 Porsche from number 10 McLaren. And the McLaren went well in the hands of Ricardo van der Ende, who was fourth in the first session. And Finley Hutchinson is second at the moment. Simon Knapp in his BMW, that's the one from MDM Motorsport, was third fastest, because Nicky Leutwiler, racing on his own, has gone to the top of the charts in the 222 Porsche Cayman, run by TFT Racing. And then Milan Donci, he's taken over that number 5 Phoenix Racing Audi on pole after the first session in the hands of Nikolai Moller-Madsen. He goes up into provisional pole here, 1 minute 41.3, but he's immediately bashed on the head by Jean-Louis Jasper in the bright day-glow yellowy green Pro-Am Phoenix Racing Audi, top by 0.6 of a second, so it's super close. And then Trissoldi goes top, and the times are tumbling down. 1 minute 38.4, so 2.2 seconds. It's not Trissoldi, sorry, it's Will Tregurtha. They both have TRE at the start of their names. You only get 3 letters on the tiny screen, but it's the 55 Ginetta, third in the first qualifying session, and now way out front. Then a sudden response from a second flying lap from Finley Hutchinson in the Keith Vachon McLaren. He goes into second place, but 0.7 of a second down. And Simon Knapp is now third, 1 second down. Oh, a bit of a spinner there from Jean-Louis Jasper. And don't forget, he moved right towards the top end of the charts. There's Jasper on the timing screen. Sorry, it was one of the sister cars that's gone for a spin. And we've got damage and a tyre passing company for BMW car number 39, limping its way in. And that should be Sylvain Debs, a bit of misfortune out on the circuit. There is Jean-Louis Jasper. He set a really good first sector time. But all along, Will Tregurtha, red flag out around the circuit. Red flag. That BMW limping its way back. 3-wide technology car. So 13 minutes and 47 seconds, this 20-minute session remaining. The drivers backing off, some coming into the pit entry. See light rear bodywork damage caused by the flailing carcass of the tyre. Sylvain Debs, suddenly a 4 kilometre lap seems an awful lot longer. The other Audi we saw having a problem with the Thierry Boutsen chicane. In fact, that's the reason for the red flag. Just out of, well, in fact, I can see it if I crane my neck. Commentary box, there's a building in between. I can just see the marshals attending the car. So while the Audi is waiting to be cleared, the red flag is out. So a chance for the drivers to consider how it's gone so far, what they need to do next. Still that BMW limping back to the pits. No one can overtake, of course. So they will have a slow in-lap. 55 car, Will Tregurtha, fastest by 0.7 of a second, just entered the pits. Sylvain Debs doesn't want any further damage, so he's coming in as slowly as he can get away with. And already we've had drivers have their best lap times removed. So Nico Rindlisbacher, sharing a Team GT McLaren with Paul Rees, has had his time taken away. They're all given the same warning about exceeding track limits, but some find they don't have the grip and do it inadvertently. But That's the law. So the BMW's made it back to at least the first part of the pit lane, and being quite like Zolder, there's a chicane coming in. You've had four around the course of the lap, then another as you come into pit lane. But of course, you're at maximum speed limit there. In fact, it looks, is he going to go back to his garage or pull off? No, he's going back to his garage. All cars must be parked nose out. There's a message on the screen when they're in the pit lane. By my memory, I think the 3-wide technology garage is quite a long way towards pit exit, which doesn't help. But it gives time for the cars running around behind their garages near a pit entry to at least get into position to be worked on. In fact, luckily for Sylvain Debs, there was a bit of space around the car. Luckily, the neighbouring apron hadn't been filled up. In fact, most of the cars with that probably still caught up behind as they come into pit entry. So just to run back, Stuart Middleton, third fastest in that first session. His teammate Will Tregurtha in the 55 Ginetta, fastest by a tidy margin, 0.7 of a second over the number 10. Keep Vacheur McLaren of fellow British racer Finlay Hutchison, then Simon Knapp waving the Dutch flag in his MDM Motorsport BMW. He is third fastest, that's the number 1 entry. There it is, closest to pit exit. With the sister car, Mark van der Aar, being pushed back into position behind. That's number 8, and that's some way further down the timing screens. In fact, not everybody even got around to set a flying lap because people were jockeying for space and position. In fact, sorry, it's Kim Bogerts. Mark van der Aar went out in the first session. Kim Bogerts, and he is in 5th place. So in fact, those BMWs are very well placed indeed. 3rd and 5th, separated by, guess what? Another BMW, which was from the RN Vision team. That was Ravzan Umbrescu. So 3rd, 4th and 5th for BMWs, and it looks undignified, but that Audi being swung onto a flat bed. And I think that could be Gosia Radest, the Polish racer, sharing with Cedric Freiberg House. Say number 3? Yes, it is number 3. I was just trying to work out which car was out on the circuit. No longer on the circuit, about to be put on the track. Put on the flatbed and brought back off the track. That's on the exit of turn 6. It was in fact they got up to the rise, which is effectively turn 7, where the track kinks to the left. So whatever the mechanical malady was, that car will be worked on, I doubt. Get back into this session. We have 13 3/4 minutes remaining once the cars get back down onto the circuit. That's off the circuit, and the green flags are waved. There's Lisette Brahms. Great livery. I don't know what the relevance of the, looks like a yellow rubber duck sticker is on the side of the car, but Lisette sharing this weekend with Sven van Leeuwen. I must say the McLaren 570S is always just looks so well balanced out around the circuit. Jan Kasperlik was quite a star early on in that session, but of course with it being stopped so early, with the red flag coming out, he did get traffic. He was, I think, 2nd fastest at the time, but he's down in 7th place, car number 43. One of 2 Porsche Caymans entered by Allied Racing. Nicolas Scholl, Austrian racer, at the wheel of the other one in this second part of the session. We've had qualifying 1, this is qualifying 2. 2 20-minute sessions. And as you can see, we got drivers down to 35th position. Christophe Au, who set a time, but a good dozen or so did not get their flying lap in before the red flag was brought out. So they'll be very keen to do so once the cars go back out onto the circuit. Conditions absolutely perfect here at Zolder, so slight frustration. We've had the red flag, but clearly with the car stationary at a quick part of the circuit, which was the number 3 Audi, Gosia Radest at the wheel. That had to be moved, and moved it has been. So I think, depending if there's a shortcut, that truck, if there's a shortcut, we should be going green fairly soon indeed. Restart at 11:05, confirmed in fact in 2 minutes' time. We will be going back out to complete this qualifying session, and for a lot of drivers just to set a flying lap. Will be a step forward, just frustrated by the red flag catching them as they were around their first flying lap, causing them to have to go out and do it all over again. Just trying to work out which of the really likely quick runners are not yet at the front. Well, Milan Donche, the car was on provisional pole after qualifying 1. He is down in 12th place in his Phoenix Racing Audi. It's one that's sort of largely white and a sort of grey stripes on it, but we are going green. And the MDM Motorsport BMW is closest to pit exit. They lead their way out. Orlando Sport, Porsche making a bit of space behind them. A whole gaggle of cars trying to wind it up. One of the McLarens, second Orlando Sport, then those two metallic mid-blue Chevrolet Corvettes. Just spotted going out onto the circuit as I just spot the flatbed going behind the control tower into the back of the paddock. So unfortunate for the number 3 crew from Phoenix Racing. But their teammates, Milan Donci, can see if he can get the sister car on pole for both of the races. He's on pole for race 1, this afternoon's race. Drivers all over again, trying to wind around, get some heat in their tyres. And Finley Hutchinson, don't forget, in his McLaren, should be in the background of the shot. Fairly soon is in second place on the time charts. He's running about, I think, 6th or 7th in the line of the cars. In fact, I think just going into the Villeneuve chicane. In the background is the Orlando Sport. Porsche powers away, and certainly MDM Motorsport really charging on with their two BMWs, number 1 and number 8, trying to get clear circuit. Koen Burgart's in number 8 and Simon Knapp in number 1, 76. Tucked in behind them, that's Alessio Giovanelli, trying to build on the work his teammate Giuseppe Jezzi did earlier on. Some of these drivers, don't forget, they've still got to get a flying lap on the board. Giovanelli in that Porsche down in 15th place, looking for an improvement, and he's already shown improvement on his outlap in the final sector. That's what these drivers need to do. They really need to be cranking it up. And oh dear, early in the season, but you get these certain things that rise. Car number 10, second fastest, Finley Hutchinson, under investigation for overtaking in the pit lane. What we saw was that whole gaggle of cars. The BMWs went out first and second, then the Orlando Sport, the 3 cars we have here. Then there was a bit of a gap, and I think Finley Hutchinson might have tried to be caught out by someone being quite slow behind, trying to make space, or just being slow. He just wanted to get out on the circuit, but possibly move past it, which you're not allowed to do until he exited the pit lane. So, well, more of that later, but hopefully nothing too untoward. But for the MDM crew, having the garages closest to pit exit, or more to the point, putting their cars in front of the garages closest to pit exit, has certainly given them an advantage. Finley Hutchinson, just talking about him in that McLaren number 10, has set his fastest first sector. Simon Knapp in the first of those 2 BMWs, running in 3rd place on the timesheets. He's improved in the second sector. Hutchinson's improved in the second sector. And Burgart has also improved in the second section, so very good indeed for the BMWs. Koen Burgart's coming up to complete the lap. Bogarts is down in 5th. He'll be across the line soon. Will number 1, Simon Knapp, his teammate, improve his position overall, improve his time, but he stays, by a whisker behind Finley Hutchinson. Hutchinson in the background of the shot, the McLaren there, should improve his time. Yes, he does, but he's closed the gap to number 55 to Will Tregurtha, but he stays in second position, 4/10 of a second in arrears. There he is in the Keep Vissure McLaren, picking his way around the outside line through the first 2 corners. Big gravel trap on the exit of turn 4. Stay out of that. You must say this pairing of new pairing for 2018 of Finley Hutchinson, Scottish racer, and Ricardo van der Ende, the Dutch star, is a very, very strong one. I'm sure we won't have seen the last of them at the top of the time charts. Oh dear, 2 cars had a little bit of a clash at turn 1, apparently a little bit of body contact. Car number 24, car 1324 is Gottfried Pils's KTM. 13 is Philip Bethke in one of the 2 Schweder Motorsport Porsche Caymans. But Hutchinson pushing on, pushing very hard indeed. He's going to have to, because suddenly the CMR, number 36, Ginetta, has just set a fantastic time. But who's got the fastest times of all? It's car number 55, fastest at the moment by 4/10 of a second. Fastest of anyone in Sector 1 for Will Tregurtha, fastest of anyone in Sector 2. So while Hutchinson is doing his utmost to improve his times, he's improved in Sector 1, he's improved in Sector 2. As he does it, moving ever faster behind him is Will Tregurtha, so the gap's not going to come down, it's going to go out. But Hutchinson could be securing second place on the grid. He's 3/10 of a second quicker than Simon Knapp in the number 1 BMW. Knapp crosses the finish line, shaves a little bit of time off. In fact, he's got very close to Hutchinson. Hutchinson's about to complete his lap, but Tregurtha is now 6/10 of a second clear, and then suddenly goes down to 3/10 because Hutchinson completes his lap. So in fact, 3/10 of a second were lost in the final sector alone by Tregurtha. So Hutchinson in this McLaren number 10, very, very good in the third final sector of the lap. So 3/10 of a second between the 55 Ginetta, the number 10 McLaren, and Simon Knapp in that number 1 BMW. Just went off picture. He is third fastest, and plenty of variety because car number 36 is from the CMR crew, and that's Stefan Tribudini. He is fourth fastest. Nicky Leutviller just moved up in his Porsche Cayman, number 222, to 5th place. Just under 8 minutes remaining. What does Simon? Well, it's going to have to be for another lap. His first sector hasn't been his best. He goes through the Villeneuve chicane. If it's his best sector time, his time will be highlighted with green background. It's orange at the moment, it means nothing super special. If it's got pink behind it, that's fastest of 41. Now a sudden in car number 16, Markus Lungstrass, Racing 1 Audi, up to 4th place overall. Oh dear, cone has been removed from the Villeneuve chicane yet again. It's caused red flags before it's sitting in the circuit. The clerk of the course won't want drivers. There we are, full course yellow. They're not hitting them with the red flag. They hit the red flag for the Blancpain runners while that was cleared. No one's going to be getting an advantage. But I just want to go back to what I was saying. Car number 16, just before that, Markus Lungstrass brought that up into 4th place overall, almost precisely 1 second, in fact 0.999 of a second down on Will Tregurtha's best time of 1 minute 38.259 seconds. Car 76. Giovanelli, 8th fastest, these marshals. That's their fitness work, just ahead of one of the Audis. That's is that the number 5 car? Going through, certainly one of the Phoenix Racing entries. Hear the rumble out around the circuit, but it's been made clear to all of these drivers that that cone is there for a purpose, so you don't shortcut the Villeneuve chicane. Top 2 runners, Will Tregurtha, Finlay Hutchinson, already back in the pit lane. Still 6 minutes on the clock, but unlike, of course, a red flag, the clock does not stop. So if this is a long stoppage, which I don't think it should be, in fact, I think we'll be going green in a matter of moments. Maybe the top 2 feel they've got enough in hand, because the gap between, it's 3/10 of a second from first, which is Will Tregurtha's Ginetta, and second, which is Finlay Hutchinson's McLaren. And then another 3/10 of a second back to Simon Knapp in the BMW, and another 3/10 of a second back to Markus Lungstrass in 4th place. Maybe they feel they've got enough on the board. So Peter Cox's daughter Stephanie coming into the pit lane. Still busy out on the circuit, still cars wherever you see it. Stephanie this year racing with Eike Angermaier, True Racing KTM. Takes a while to scoop down an entry list with 44 entries on it, 88 drivers, in fact 85 drivers, because 3 are driving single-handed. This looks as though it's Fiona James reporting back in number 60, Aston Martin. Showing that with Matt Nicol-Jones, and Matt, absolute star. Green flag we go, just under 5 minutes remaining. Where's the improvement going to come from? It's Stefan Tribudini, number 36. You can just see his car, yellow and red flashes on that white Ginetta going down through turn 1. At the moment, 5th fastest. You can see the track has gaggles of cars on it. It's those not running in gaggles will really, really have a chance to lay down their marker. But I don't see anybody toppling Will Tregurtha. Car number 47. One of a handful of Mercedes, that's from Lechner Racing, and that's Florian Janitz, one of the 2 Austrian drivers in the Austrian entered car. Outside the top 10, outside the top 20, in fact 22nd position, but Simon Knapp, 3rd fastest. With the top 2 challengers sitting in the pit lane, this is his opportunity. So he's got relatively clear track in front of that MDM Motorsport Mercedes. Why do I call it Mercedes? It's actually a BMW. Anyone can see that. He's got the Bullet Racing Mercedes up ahead of him. Maybe that's what made me say that, but anyhow. So the MDM Motorsport BMW through the boots and chicane. I think that Mercedes is far enough in front of him not to trouble him. How good was his first sector time? 9/10 of a second off the very best, so this isn't a scintillating lap. 3/10 of a second slower than the car that's chasing him. Markus Lundstras could be about to depose him. He's got to find just over 3/10 of a second in the number 16 Racing 1 Audi. Oh dear, that's possibly not the way to do it through the final corner. How much does that cost Markus Lundstras? I'm sure he'll improve his time, but he doesn't improve his position. And then suddenly, from nowhere, number 77 has slotted itself past both of those cars. And that's another of the Racing 1 Audis. It was tucked in behind and took advantage of that mishap from Markus Lundstras. And so for Patrick Zamperini in car number 77, it's moved up to third place. So we've got Ginetta from McLaren, from Audi, from BMW, from Audi and Ginetta. And then a Porsche, the top Porsche in 7th place overall, Nicky Leutwiler. With the number 6, bright day-glow yellow, Jean-Louis Jasper has just set his fastest first sector, right looking back at his face. But he needs to find time. He's down in 16th place overall, but it should be a very strong pairing with Jörg Wiebahn. Straight down to the Villeneuve chicane, leaving the cone alone, that's good. Be seen. You can still see the trees as you look back at him all around the outside the circuit. Ironically, just at the point where the number 6 Audi is flashing past fewer trees, they've largely been removed from the outside of the circuit to make more space for the access roads. So it's a little bit brighter down that end than the drivers are used to as they go around Zolder. Another person suddenly moving in, car number 37 moving into the mix, and it's Stefan Lemur, a Belgian racer, sharing a 3Y Technology BMW with Akhil Rabindra, Indian racer, who's moving across to this sort of racing. And he has moved into 5th place. Still the top 2 drivers sitting in the pit lane. Will Tregurtha and Finlay Hutchison. This is a car, I thought I heard a spinning sound, and it's the number 4 entry there. It's Phoenix Racing, and that's Jörg Bernsteiner sharing that with Helmut Rodig. And gone off at turn 1. That big gravel trap has done what it needs to do. But for Helmut Rodig, look in the background. Oh, it's got away from him a long way before he got too deep into the corner. He knew what was coming, but the gravel trap was there. That will be session run for him. Under a minute to go. As we look at that replay, top 4 runners in the pits, because Zamperini just moved into 3rd place in the number 77. Audi for Racing 1 reported in the pits. The MDM Motorsport number 1 BMW of Simon Knapp has given it his best shot. He's moved into the pits. This is the trouble when you get a slightly stop-start session. You take life out of your tyres, not on a full qualifying lap. Stefan Lemur still back out on the circuit, 5th fastest in the number 37, which was one of the 3Y Technology BMWs. But for all else, I can't see that many improvements coming to trouble the top runners. Those yellow flags out around the circuit. Milan Donci, well, I'm afraid he hasn't managed to replicate the form of his teammate. That number 5 Audi was fastest in qualifying number 1, down in 20th position, the checkered flag being waved, and really not likely to improve a great deal. Actually did improve. In fact, he gained 11 places. He suddenly put in a really, really good second part of his lap. His first part of his lap was very close to his best, so up to 9th place. So that's a big recovery for Milan Donci. He was down in 20th, the checkered flag was waved, and his last lap was good enough to propel him up the order. Looking for any other changes. The top 4 sitting in the pit lane. Will Stefan Lemur complete his lap? He has completed lap. He hasn't improved. So I think we're safe to name our top 4 runners. Good late chance there from Milan Donci, though. Number 5, Phoenix Racing Audi, fastest in the first qualifying session, but really the full course yellows interrupted Milan's progress. Doesn't have as much experience as Nikolai Moller-Madsen. And here comes Florian Janitz. The checkered flag is out. Car 47, will it go charging up the order? Well, it needs to, because it's outside the top 20, 23rd. And there it stays, Florian Janitz. 2 McLarens coming through behind. Two McLarens running together from Team GT entries. And it will seem with 44 cars having come out to play that they will keep feeding their way into the pit lane as the last few, including that Turkish Boristan Automotive Motorsport BMW in the background, complete their qualifying session. In fact, not too bad a time, 15th fastest for the driver at the wheel at the time, which was Yagiz Gedik, sharing that with Ali Turkan. So BMW starting to make themselves notice in this championship, but up at the very, very sharp end, it's the Ginetta from HHC Motorsport. Will Tregurtha building on the work of Stuart Middleton. He is fastest. Finley Hutchison, second fastest in his McLaren. But don't forget, I did mention at the start of the session that car number 10, that is Finley Hutchison, was under initial investigation for perhaps overtaking in the pit lane. That was possibly in the scramble. But for now, Hutchison stays second on the charts, 0.3 of a second down on Will Tregurtha's HHC Motorsport Ginetta. So it's Ginetta from McLaren. Patrick Zamperini, great late charge in the number 77 Racing 1 Audi to go third fastest. Simon Knapp, good solid run, MDM Motorsport number 1 BMW. Then a good run late in the session for car number 37 with Stefan Lemur, home pride, 3-wide technology, BMW 5th fastest. Marcus Lundstras looked strong, just got a little bit wide out of that final corner. That dropped him to 6th place overall. Stefan Tribigini and Pierre-Alexandre Jean look like a very strong pairing. They were 7th fastest. And the times keep on going. Jörg Wiebahn and Jean-Louis Jasper, their car, number 6 Audi. Look for that in both the races. I think we'll see that coming forward. Only 13th fastest there. Nico Rindlisbacher, Paul Rees, not a bad pairing in 4th place. But as you can see, the top 22 runners covered by 2 seconds. That is very, very close indeed. So it's a blink of an eye, an excuse here or there. Chevrolet Camaros didn't do as well as some might have hoped. You can see Jelle Bielen and Wolf Nathan, Dutch pairing down outside the very first 20 cars on the grid. 42 runners in the end set flying laps, and a few people were interrupted. But there, look, a great grouping of cars and just racing to get out on the circuit to go and try and set their times. It was all about, in both qualifying sessions, finding a clear lap, getting some heat in your tyres, avoiding the cone at the Villeneuve chicane, which some found too tempting to try and shorten their lap. There's the street art racing Aston Martin. Porsche Cayman still super popular, and breaking a bit of a puncture coming into the pit lane from one of the 2 Audis from Racing 1. And then an unusual moment for Jörg Wiebahn, out over the curbs and beyond out of turn 4, got it back on the track. And on the track was where the real racing action was going on. There's the number 2. Marcus Pablo and even Pereiras entry, the Mercedes from Lippert Motorsport. Great variety, but as you can see, some drivers backing off, others trying to really, really press on to make their space in the traffic and not go too heavily over the curbs at the chicane. But for Stuart Middleton and Will Tregurtha in the HHC Motorsport Ginetta, 3rd in one qualifying session, 1st in the other, showed they were right in the mix. But how's that for variety? Chevrolet, BMW, Porsche, and tucked in behind Aston Martin, all trying to find their space on the circuit. That's 6 Audi pushing on very hard for Phoenix Racing, and there was the problem for Gozira Dest, the Polish racer. Her number 3 Audi pulled to the side of the circuit and limped its way to the top at turn 7. Then a big tyre problem for Gwenaël Delomier and the driver at the wheel, Sylvain Debs. Their BMW made it back to the pits, but it was Audi trying to make their space out on the circuit, get up to the speed. Very, very technical here at Zolder circuit. The chicane's breaking the flow, but the BMWs worked their way towards the top of the time chart. Simon Knapp looking very impressive in number 1. But as you can see, traffic absolutely everywhere. This is qualifying, not racing. Not everyone getting it right, but we've got 2 great grids of cars set for the racing for the opening rounds, the GT4 European Series at Zolder. Bring it on.